Welcome to the Crypt Rick and Jonathan Show. I'm your host, Crypt Rick, and this is my co-host, Jonathan Wright.
We are going to be bringing you information and inspiration from all the variety under the sun. Things that will encourage mental and spiritual growth and empower you to freedom, fun, and health.
Make sure you don't miss our show every Saturday, Studio B, 6 to 8 p.m. right here at Revolution Radio.
The journey begins.
Welcome everybody. My God, it's another Saturday evening and also very special show tonight because we are bringing in a new year, 2022, almost, at least for us, where I am, out of the way, and 2023 is almost on its way here very, very soon. So this is very cool. I'm excited to be here this evening and doing a show on, New Year's Eve, at least where I am. I know some people around the world have already had their New Year's, so Happy New Year to all of you people. And hope you had a great New Year. I know that a lot of people around here are doing the party thing and that. I don't do that kind of thing. I think I'm a little too old, so I'm kind of like, I'm lucky if I make it to 12:01, so that's my goal for tonight. So just to let you guys know that I'm really excited to be here. Don't forget that it is listener supported here, guys, at Revolution Radio, and I always tell you guys, it is you guys that make this all work through your donations, through your generosity, and it is greatly appreciated because it is keeping freedom of speech alive, definitely working to keep freedom alive, which is at this time, on the ropes. So a lot of great ways to donate. You can do it through, if you're doing cryptocurrency, there's Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum. If you want to become a Patreon and donate every month, you can do it that way as well. And you can also go snail mail. It is still a thing, and you can donate that way. Just head over to freedomslips.com and go up to the donation section. Lots of great ways to do it. And like I said, your donations, no matter how big or small, are greatly appreciated, guys. So thank you. And with that out of the way, I just want to go ahead and welcome my co-host. Welcome, Mr. Jonathan Wright. How are you doing this New Year's Eve, Jonathan?
Yes, sir. Happy New Year's.
You too.
To everybody. And I'm doing well. I'm finally over my sickness. And that is a long time coming, man. It's been a while since I felt that bad for like 2 solid weeks.
Yeah.
And I mean, towards the end, it wasn't that bad, but like I knew I had been sick. And so, yeah, it's been a while. And I'll tell you, even though out of all of it, the gratitude that I have for it, because it just took me down a peg and it gave me a full appreciation for having energy when I wake up. Like, because it took me a lot of time to get myself to healthy, what I consider healthy. And I'm not super healthy, but I'm healthy and I'm in shape and I'm happy with what I'm doing. And it took a lot of work to get there. And you start to perhaps take for granted how, like sometimes I'll be talking to people and they're like, so like when you get up, you just have energy, like to get up and start going, like every day, like ridiculous amounts. Like it's like I have to go do stuff because it's just, yeah. And so, man, when you really have to sit for a couple weeks because you have a hard time standing through a 5-minute shower.
Yep.
Like I couldn't believe that I had a hard time standing through a 5-minute shower a few times. Like, wow, this really sucks.
Yeah, you were telling me that was the hardest part. You couldn't do anything.
Man.
Like, you just lay there. Then
when
horrible.
You lay there, you're like, oh, I don't feel that bad. And then you get up and you're like, oh, wow. I guess I do. So, yeah, that took some time to get over. And, man, I just feel so much better now. I went and worked out again finally and kind of getting back into my normal routine. I had to climb up into my attic, which requires gymnast and ninja skills all day long. And so I was up for that yeah, so I'm doing much better. It's just such a good feeling to be through that,
Well, I'm
and
glad
I
to
think
hear
it's
that.
necessary to have it once in a while so that you can appreciate again the feeling good and like not wasting your good feeling and doing something with it. So yeah.
Absolutely. Stuff. That's great to hear because I know it hit you hard for a couple of weeks. Like I was really, and you're one of the healthiest people I know. Like you're religious with doing your all your vitamins and you're eating healthy, and it's like if that can take you down a notch that quick.
That's why, I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that you did say that you're like, man, I would have thought that you And that goes to show that even somebody who does like pretty religiously take care of themselves, don't
Yeah.
put a lot of chemicals, poison meat, a lot of other things that a lot of people do. I don't have that going on, and I haven't for a long time. I don't really drink anything but filtered water. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't do drugs. There's a lot of things not going in me, and so to still be able to get pretty sick, it
Interesting.
just makes you realize that it makes me, first of all, completely question things still, because terrain theory is not entirely it. Germ theory is not it. And so there's some sort of thing going on there where I know I got sick because I went into a room full of vaccinated people. That's without a doubt, because that's what happened.
Christmas
Now,
party, came home sick.
Yep.
Absolutely.
3 days later, I got sick. And
Wow.
then my mom was 1 day behind me. We didn't have the exact same symptoms, right? Like throughout the thing, it didn't go the same. Very similar, but definitely not the same. And it's just, it really makes me question, because I got to firsthand go through the experience of, like, going somewhere, not sick, getting sick, going through it, and then getting over it, and like, what just happened? Because I definitely don't necessarily just buy into the theory that I breathed in that little particle and it ran its course and that's how that went. But I definitely picked something up contagiously through some means, being at that party, and
Right.
went through it, and yeah. So
You're
even
back on fire.
and even taking care of yourself and doing all that, like, I still went through it. So sickness is
Wow.
real, and taking care of yourself is, I probably experienced half, I bet, of what I should have. You know what I mean? Because
Good point.
I'm a pretty big baby when it comes to being sick, and it kicked my butt, but I think it
Wow.
could have been a lot worse, is what I'm getting at. And
Oh, for sure.
so yeah, I think I did good just taking care of myself in that regard. But so
Absolutely.
it's hugely important. So I just,
Absolutely. That's
yeah.
why we talk about it so often. So I'm glad that, we brought that up, because we talk about health all the time, and very important. And I've learned that. I'm learning that as we go.
And it's funny too, because my mom was starting to get like she needed some laxatives, and so this goes along with the health thing, and that's again, just to quickly get this out there, and I picked up the one that I have in my cabinet, dude, and it comes from Bayer, of course, the Bayer company. So I should have known better right then, but of course, like, so I'm reading through it, and it's just, and I'm like, whatever. Oh, 1 to 3 days, and blah blah blah, be good. If you have a kidney disease, don't do this. Okay, well, if you're allergic to polyethylene glycol, do not take. What? Like, if you're allergic to drinking antifreeze, don't take this.
Well, of course.
So then, yeah, it's like literally active ingredient, polyethylene glycol.
Incredible.
Period. So yeah, I'm betting it makes you go to the bathroom. I mean, it's just like you drink a poison that your body just goes, oh my God, reject it with everything we have. And then it's like, see, it blew it out the other end. There you go. Oh,
Very true, man.
Just think that's crazy.
But
So,
we have an amazing guest. I want to get our guest on, Jonathan. I'm excited. I've had him on my Monday show, I think, a couple times now. I've done video interviews with him for my YouTube and my Rumble channel. I've learned so much from this gentleman. It's incredible. And I'm so excited that we got him on the show, because he brings a lot of knowledge. I'm telling you. Like,
yeah, he's on the One Great Work Network.
Absolutely. Yep. And he's part of Funnel. So Funnel 1 and Funnel 2, done presentations on there. Doing a lot of the behind the scenes. So, I mean, very, very active in getting the message of natural law and conscious parenting and the whole gamut. He's getting that out there, and incredible. Part of the Natural Freedom League is that. So, I mean, what can I say? He covers so much, and so much great information.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're going to talk to him today about some parenting stuff too.
Absolutely.
And that goes right along with everything that we talk about. It's just so good to finally have somebody that really focuses on this, that actually can have like a legitimate conversation, because I can have some good questions.
Oh, me too.
And some good, maybe possible insights. But like I've heard Will give his presentations and a lot of his stuff before, and it's very well thought out. He's done this before. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this. This will be good.
So let's welcome Will Keller to the show. Welcome, Will, this is definitely your first time coming on our show. So welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, Rick and Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be on your guys' show. You guys are doing great content, man. You guys touch on some excellent topics, and this is one that I hold very much dear to me. And just real quick, because you were talking about health earlier, it's such a powerful topic. I'm constantly like reevaluating the health dynamic. I mean, that's pretty much how my awareness started with health and with water. But my dad is 60 years old, never been sick. Now,
Really?
Wow.
yes, and I'm 41, and his best friend has known him since he was 9. Says he's never seen my dad sick. Now, I mean, that's pretty mind blowing. But in my life, never seen my dad sick. My stepmom has never seen my dad sick. My dad says, he says jokingly, he doesn't believe in it, right? But he knows that's a joke. So, but my dad gets a lot of sun. He's outside like every day. So, who knows? Maybe he's an enigma.
Yeah, vitamin D3 is like, if it, even if you're going into just straight up germ theory, they say if you have enough vitamin D3, the virus can't get into your cells to replicate. Period.
Yeah.
And vitamin D3, best way to get it is from the sun. So,
For sure.
I mean, weirder things have happened, man. That's so cool that he's that old and has never been sick. And I believe him. Why would you come on our show and make that up? That's like, you're going to fool millions with that story.
I know.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I totally believe it. That's crazy, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a trip. He's very grounded in himself, and he's got good energy, good head on his shoulders, psychologically and stuff. So he's a good guy.
Yep.
Wow.
That's
And
cool.
just what a coincidence, during COVID, they were telling everybody to stay in and not, stay indoors. And I was like, I'm going outside. That's what I did through the whole COVID thing. I just sat outside and cooked myself in the sun. I did great. I was fine.
I think one of the more important things that we took out of that story is that he didn't believe in it. That's the whole point of COVID. They told you to believe in it through the television. And if you're like, I don't believe in it though, you weren't going to get it. I mean, so
yeah,
that's a good
exactly.
point. Yeah,
exactly.
Very good stuff. I didn't believe in it, and I didn't really take that stance until I heard David Icke talking about it. But I was like, oh, it makes so much more sense, because to me, it's all a lie. Some way or another, they're lying to us. And so to hear it presented as like, well, imagine that they really lied to you. And it's like, oh, because that is what I believe. I just didn't quite think like that. But yep, I bet they just made the whole thing up completely. They already work on stuff in labs that they, bioweapons and stuff that they can spray on us. And then, because then when that first all broke out, they were shuttling people around, man, and there was people watching people get shuttled around, and they're like, what's going on here? Like the feds are like moving around buses of people from China into Texas and into over here, and what's going on? Why are you doing that? We're supposed to be on a lockdown. So I think that's how they were spreading something. They actually have to get something on you for it to be like the virus, for it to work like that germ theory. Because I don't think you can get one guy gets sick and then now the whole world's sharing the same thing. I just don't think it works like that. But I do think they can spray a crowd of people with something, and now those crowd of people, in say an amount of time, can go spread that thing over into an area. I believe in that.
Yeah, we need to understand, energy exchange as well, right? I mean, germ theory and terrain theory. I'm definitely do not subscribe to germ theory whatsoever, but I'm not 100% in terrain theory. I think it's more probable that it's like terrain theory, but there's also some factors that a lot of people are missing, and I would definitely look at the energetic exchange between people and environment. Right. I mean, that's a big, The Invisible Rainbow is a really good book that kind of dives into that.
I have it. I haven't read it. It's part of my pile. It's part of my pile that keeps growing. That's like, well, if I buy it, I'll read it.
Yeah, I have a couple piles like that, man.
Yeah.
They just keep
so
growing.
much to take in.
There's only so much time, and my book collection is growing and growing, but I can only read so fast. But I will get to them. I'll get to them.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just like, well, if I buy that, then it'll force me to read it. And then I get the Invisible Rainbow, and it shows up. It's like 2 Bibles put together. I'm like, oh, that's good.
But very interesting. So what I know you talk a lot about conscious parenting. Well, we've talked about it on my show, and I think it's so important because I just see where things are going, and parenting in general. This is such a vast topic. So I want you to enter it where you think you want to start covering, and then we can. I know I'm going to have tons of questions, as I'm sure Jonathan will, but I have friends that are parents, and what I see is it bothers me. Like it's because I see where it's going, and I see a lot of different aspects where there's not really any parenting going on, from what I can see. It's a lot. I've told people before, I see technology basically raising their children, and they're not really getting out and doing things with them. I was very fortunate, and I had a stay-at-home mother till I went to high school, and she had me out in nature constantly and exploring and encouraged me to do these things. And I just don't. What is going on, Will? Like, break it
Mm.
down for us.
Yeah, really good points. I always start with like a caveat. I try to speak plainly and simplify the profound. This topic of conscious parenting is obviously sensitive for a lot of people, but
Right.
I don't care. I think more people need to have these conversations because we're dealing with children, we're dealing with the future. And I mean, this is one of the most, personally, I think the most important topic for freedom, to create freedom. It always starts in the mind, and that always starts within the household, within the family dynamic. So when we get, an overarching understanding of what's going on in the world, that government is rampant and people believe in government, that it has the belief in human authority has validity, and these psychopaths have a right to do this. This all stems from something. This ideology, it stems from when we were children, the programming that we have picked up from our parents. So absolutely, the majority of human beings are spiritual children, right? We have not reached adulthood in understanding the natural world, how reality operates, and how to act in the world, right? How to think and how to act. This is, this reducing what's going down, what's going down in the world. We can bring it down to the causal factors, and it's as simple as that. We do not know how to think correctly and act correctly, and that stems from incorrect parenting. So, we can define some terms. And again, I've done a couple of presentations, like Jonathan mentioned. I highly recommend people go check those out, because I don't want to kind of repeat myself in interviews. I love doing interviews on this topic, but let's dive into like some newer, juicier stuff. And again, I'm open to all questions and all topics for sure. But let's get some foundational terms down. Like, what is conscious parenting? What does it mean to be a conscious parent? Well, it means that you are educated as a parent, right? You understand your role in the natural world. A man and a woman came together and had a child. This created a vessel for a soul to have an experience. This is the human experience. We are born in this reality to grow and evolve in consciousness, and we have a physical vessel to do this. This is great responsibility, right? It's not, I mean, if you look at what's going on socially nowadays, it's just, knocked up my girlfriend. It's just, having a child is just, it's been degraded and perverted and inverted, right? It's just something that happens to people most of the time on accident, right? If we were in spiritual adulthood, we would be in something of conscious conception, where two aware human beings come together. That act of coming together and creating a child is the most sacred act in this reality, for sure. So it's very important, especially when you're doing it consciously. But nowadays, it's so easy for just parents to just have kids and then just give them off to culture and give them off to these institutions. And there's hardly any accountability, responsibility, correct engagement, right? And these are some of the things that we were going to talk about today. So conscious parenting, right? I mean, if you break the words up. Conscious, a being's ability to recognize patterns within itself and in its environment, i.e. awareness. A simple term, awareness. So you have to be educated. You have to actually understand the natural world, how it works, and how to act, and understand the modalities of consciousness: thought, emotion, and action. So these are fundamental, yet the human species has just strayed so far from what it means to be human, right? So that's conscious. And parenting, it's the most common term, right? Parenting. It's kind of a funny term. If you look at the word parenting, pair, renting, a pair of people renting from whom? Well, who's making a claim upon human beings? The state, the government, the social engineers, right? The people, the elites, the people, or not the elites, but the people who are controlling the world. So to use a more descriptive term, it's a stewardship. It's a stewardship and a facilitation, meaning that because you've created your child, this does not give you ownership of your child, right? And that what I just said kind of stems into the abortion type topic, right? Maybe we can dive into that later on. But you do not, because you either you're a woman where you're creating the vessel, or you're the man that applied the seed, right? It takes two. They're equally important, but you don't own your child. So this is a being that is having its individual experience, and we as stewardships, which stewardship, the word actually means entrusted to one's care, usually of great importance. This is what it is. So we are a facilitator. We're helping this young being become self-sufficient. And we do this by being the example and by educating the youth, our children, on important topics. Now, there's tons of parenting styles. You can look all up and down the spectrum. There's a lot of people that talk about parenting styles, right? I focus on the principles, the objective principles of parenting, right? And we can dive into this as well.
Well, what I find interesting, just to add in, is that when I talk to parents and I say, "Do you think you're being a good parent?" They immediately knee-jerk reaction that I get is they think they're doing a bang-out job because they're providing a roof over their child's head. They got food, they got clothing, and all the latest gadgets. And I think a lot of parents, to me, that's such a low marker to set at, is that you're just providing the needs, but it goes so much more than that. And it's just really fascinating that a lot of the parents I talk to, that's what they gauge this on, is like, is their kid have every video game? Does it have all the latest technology? They're doing a great job. And I'm like, it's so much deeper than that, as I'm sure you can explain.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Great point too. And feel free to interrupt me at any time, but that's awesome, because if we look at the psychological level, the level of awareness of human beings, most human beings, the majority, are stuck in the material realm, the material plane. They just look at it as matter, right? So it's like, well, my kid's got a roof over their head. They have video games. They got all the toys, all that kind of stuff. This is not adequate on the psychological, the emotional level, even the physical, right? So when parents say, and this is why this topic is so sensitive, because a lot of parents think they are good parents. And I'll be the bearer of bad news and say the majority of parents are doing a bad job. They're bad parents because of what they think they know, what they believe, why they believe they're a good parent. And that's a question that I always ask someone, right? Hey, do you think you're a good parent? Why?
Yeah.
See what they say, right? And like you were saying, well, I got a nice house, we got cars.
And then also, real quick, tell people that they're a de facto Satanist, and then ask them, why. And then it's funny because they can then say it just one time. It's funny because we had a show about this a while back where it's like we said the same thing, like kind of like what you did. It's like, sorry, if you're a parent, you're probably doing a bad job. And we were saying back at that time that probably if you're hearing this, you're in some way or another acting as a Satanist. And so, there's sometimes bad news gets bared on this show, but it's okay because it's for an enlightening purpose. And
exactly.
And for a good thing. And so, dude, this is awesome. This is,
Exactly. And as much as this topic can sting and hurt and offend some people, so be it. Like I said in the beginning, this is the most important topic for freedom to evolve as a species, right? Because we're constantly playing catch up, meaning if the majority of parents are parenting incorrectly, right? We're just the human condition of control and slavery and de-evolution, involution is just going to keep spiraling out of control in a downward spiral, right? So we're constantly playing catch up. As soon as more parents understand what conscious parenting is and activate and take that responsibility, then we will start to see the tides turn to create freedom for sure.
And now with the fact that people have gotten lazy and apathetic about their kids' future, now the bad guys are in full steam ahead. They're not like pretending anymore. They're like, no, we're coming after your kids. We're grooming them and we're turning them into weird shit. And it's like, whoa, dude. So now you don't have the option to like look into homeschooling. You have to homeschool or your kids are going to be turned into who knows what. They're going to be messed with mentally. I mean, it's just and so like I said, the bad guys are 24/7 going after the kids. So you're right. This is the most important thing for freedom, because once the kids once their minds are gone, it's over. It's over. There's no more remembrance after that, because then all they got to do is kill off the old people one way or another, and then that thing in our mind never existed anymore. It's that quick. That's pretty easy way to erase stuff, because with a younger generation that didn't even know it existed, and now you just got to target a few people, and with the amount of control they have over our information, it's like, dude, things can disappear real fast in the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, and I use this term a lot, right? It's distract the older generation and program and condition the younger generation, because the younger generation is going to create and set the tone for the new society, or how society is going to function in the future. This is why culture is the strong arm of tyranny, why it has so much power over the minds of the youth. And they, you know, like you said, times are shifting, right? This isn't covert anymore. This is overt. Like they're literally telling you what they want to do. They're putting it in your face. They've been coming for our kids. They are going to continue to do that. And like you said, it is grooming. It has to, they want the minds. They need the mind, right? Because the mind, the all is mind. This is the first principle. If you can capture and train the mind, then you are you're managing perception and you're controlling behavior.
And reality, kind of, almost at some point.
Absolutely, for sure. You're definitely, you're influencing the sway of civilization and the human species, and for the planet as well. We're all tied in together. So, you know, this is why the family dynamic is so important. This is the foundation, the structure of psychological, emotional, moral, and spiritual development. Now, for me, and I'll also say this too, I have a 9-year-old daughter. I just have one child. One's enough. She's beautiful. I'm in a co-parenting situation, like the majority of parents, right? Co-parenting is the norm nowadays, and that can be extremely brutal. So we can touch on that as well. But it's important to understand that this is what is targeted. The family dynamic at the young age, as young as possible, the social engineers want to put a wedge in the family dynamic. And they do this through ideologies, right? And I use this good phrase. This is called psychological transference. This is when you're just passing on psychological or emotional baggage right on down to your kids. Here's a good analogy. This is a crude analogy, and I've said this before. Santa Claus is a great example.
Oh, yeah.
So a whole bunch of people, right? They propagate the ideology of the belief in Santa Claus, right? Hate to break it, Santa Claus isn't real, doesn't exist, right? There's no fat guy coming down your chimney putting toys under there. But what does Santa Claus do, right? He watches you all year to make sure you're naughty or nice. So it's perception management for behavior control. And this is done for young kids. Well, every young kid finds out that, hey, my parents lied to me. Santa Claus isn't real. They grow up, they have kids, and what do? They propagate Santa Claus. They do the same thing. And sure, it's fun and all that kind of stuff, but still, like I said, this is a small analogy. Mm-hmm. We can apply this to the world. And the belief in human authority is the same thing as Santa Claus, right? We're propagating an ideology that is artificial. It's fictitious. It has no validity in reality, but we are passing it on to our children as well. So, and this goes all down the board for parenting, schooling, the physical aspect with vaccines, what your children are eating, food, dietary, psychologically, right? Even through technology, culture. Culture is so big, entertainment, and all of this, right? It severs the connection, the natural connection of parents and children, because that's what they want. They want the mind. And this is why you have daycare, preschool. They want you to get them into the institutions, take them to the pediatrician as early as possible, do that checkup, every once in a while, and get your genetic modification and your toxin injections, right?
Mhm.
These are all beliefs. These are all belief systems. You talk to people that are completely unaware of needlecraft, meaning vaccinations, right? They give their kids vaccines because they got their vaccines, right? But when they were young, it was 30. Now it's 78 or 84. So it's just psychological transference. We're just passing the buck on down to our children, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah, it blows my mind that we can consider injecting children with vaccines. Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. Like, and again, it's this weird scientism thing going on in the world that people have decided that people in the white lab coats and the stuff that's been kind of transferred down to us through television somehow seems to be like the thing that everybody's like, yay. And that thing tells you the truth, and everything outside of that's not really real. And it's just like, we've completely lost the concept of what science and learning and truly being inquisitive and setting up an experiment and following through and getting results and then repeating it and making sure you get these similar results with different things. And like, we don't do any of that, man. Like, that guy's how it is. That guy says so. That's why. And then people will literally just attack you because that guy said so. It's like, we're under a spell. We're under a couple of really big, watch back over some of the Olympics, their little grand elaborate things and all the Super Bowl stuff they play at us on TV, and the constant bombardment of these things like that, where they tell you what they're doing to you, and you will accept this, and you sit there and watch it and then go about your day, and slowly over time do accept it. And you've then now kind of created this. And so it's just crazy. And again, that's how they know they're doing this. So that's why they're going after the kids, because that's how they're going to get their world created. They're not worried about us. They know that we know, and they know there's nothing they can do about that. So we'll just go after the kids, and we'll burden them with so much weight of money and crap, and then that they can't just take care of their own kids. They have to rely on us. There we are.
Very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's social media too. I that's another topic I like to cover more. I want to get into more about the social media aspect of it, because when we were growing up, Will, like, we didn't have. I think back, like, I mean, like, we didn't have all this technology, but at least when I was younger, we didn't. And I can't even imagine even the stress that children are going through just from just from that aspect of it, the social media aspect of it. Kind of like when you were in school at my age, you got picked on, you kind of went home, that was your haven. And you could kind of have your group of friends outside of that system, and it was fine. But now with social media, they can attack you constantly, and do websites about you, whatever they want. I just think it's changed so quickly for children in such a short amount of time that we haven't even begun to see the damage that this technology is doing. Which I agree with a lot of. I agree, technology can be used for great things. It's making this happen, but there is a dark side to it. And I just really, when I see parents giving these tablets and devices to children so young, like 3, 4 years old, they can work one better than I can. There's got to be a backlash to this somewhere. There's got to be a dark side to it.
Yeah, and every parent knows, if your young child plays on the iPad or the phone or even the TV, right, take it away from them and watch how they act.
Exactly.
There is a detox. There is a withdrawal, right? This is addiction. It absolutely is, 100%.
Yep. I've seen it in person. I've seen a child have a tablet, the battery goes dead, and they lost it. Like, they lost it, like a complete meltdown. And I was like, wow, like, that's the power that they have, that we're dealing with.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm not of the position that technology is bad. I understand it's a tool. It can be used for good or for negative consequences, so it's all about a balance. And so we'll talk about real quick on the parenting aspect, because there's some principles that apply to all parents.
Right.
And this journey of parenting, it's individualized. It's custom to every household and family, which is kind of that's the beautiful thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of parents, they look and they seek, they want the ultimate like format, the ultimate parental guide, so they can mimic, right? And it's like, look, you're not going to find that, right? You are, the relationship that you have with your children is unique and special. You can't copycat other parents or anything like that. But there are some principles. Excuse me. There are some principles that every parent needs to know. And and I'll say another thing. Since my daughter's 9, I've focused on, the age group of around 9 all the way younger, the formative years and stuff like that. But once you're a parent, you're always a parent. So let's say your children are grown, right? Grown men and women. You're still a parent, meaning you still have that connection, that relationship, and that influence. And there's some solutions for someone that has a grown child. And that would be, obviously educating yourself and facilitating still, but in a process of shadow work to like inspire the children to do the shadow work, because there's a lot of childhood trauma that we've all been through,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to heal from that. And childhood trauma, it's a pretty big spectrum, a gradient, right? From the most severe of physical abuse to false ideologies and emotional inadequacies.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a huge spectrum, but it's good that you can facilitate that process with your children that are older and bring them into education, right? So that's something that's really powerful. So what are these principles that every parent needs to know? Well, it's obviously how to act in the world, right?
Right.
This is objective morality. Morality is the difference between right action and wrong action. In the definition, it implies objectivity, meaning there is a difference, right? There is a definite difference, and there is a standard, an objective standard to how to act and behave. And I know you guys know this, probably a lot of your listeners, right? It's do no harm. Do no harm. Do not initiate any aggression. And if aggression is initiated upon you, you have the right to defend yourself.
Right.
This is very important. And now a lot of parents, oh yeah, well, I know that. Yeah, no problem. But see, you have to apply it to the world and what's going on in the current human condition. That's the hard part for a lot of people. So objective morality, it's so important. It's the most important topic because we exist in this reality and we interact. What's more basic than that?
Yeah.
We interact, and we're going to interact with the world and with each other. No one's born and then just lives on top of a mountain their whole life. I mean, maybe there might be some, monks out there or something, but the majority of people, we have to interact with society and with other people. So are you causing harm or not? Are you condoning, supporting aggression and harmful behavior or not? Right. So this is very important. If we can understand objective morality, everything else starts to fall in place. And guess what? Humans are pretty smart beings. We have logic and reason. We can figure out all the nitty-gritty details later on. But that's the foundation, right? The foundation has to be solid or the whole structure is going to fall over. So that is really important. Obviously, objective morality, right behavior and wrong behavior, it's based on rights, what you have the right to do and not do. Mm-hmm. So this is really important for parents to understand in correlation and correspondence to what's going on in the world, and to honor their children and respect their children's rights as well. I'm not for spanking. Spanking to me is just a cop-out. Right. I mean, most people that still, and I was spanked as a kid.
I was too.
It was what was it? It was part of a tradition. It was part of an ideology. This
Yep.
is psychological transference. Well, my dad beat me. I'm going to beat my kids.
Yep.
It's like without question.
That's what my dad
Is the
said. That's the way
problem.
my dad did it, so that's why I'm doing it. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, yeah. My dad spanked me here and there. It wasn't, it wasn't a lot. He loved
Yeah.
me very much too. So, but he gave me the best advice when my daughter was born. He said, "Look, here's the advice I'm going to give you, son. Um, just reflect on your childhood and be a better dad than me." That's great advice. What he's
is great.
implying is to evolve, right? To educate yourself and evolve in the parenting dynamic as a dad. So it's really important. Natural rights, objective morality, also to understand that you have to honor your kid, right? Respect them. Understand that you do not own them. You do not have authority over them. Yes, you are a facilitator. You are responsible. Responsibility is your ability to respond. To respond to what? To a baby, right? So don't when I'm saying, like give your child freedom, I don't mean like, oh, my baby's walking across the street now onto oncoming traffic. I'm not gonna That's their freedom. Of course not. Like, come on, we need to use logic and reason. And I say this because I've gotten these comments before, right? People are like, oh, just let my kid do anything they want. And it's like, look,
That's not what you're saying.
exactly. You got to be the example, right? You don't tell your kid eat healthy and you're shoving McDonald's down your throat.
Right.
So
there was Dinah Martin, the way she kind of explained it, like kind of let them do whatever they want. And that was her approach, and that was just the way the lecture I was listening to anyway. And of course she said that's not going to necessarily work for everybody, and then she of course had an hour to explain what she meant. It wasn't literally just let them do whatever they want, but kind of. And her thing was you teach them by showing them. Again, it's really almost all example. And when they need to know math because something that they want requires them to, then they'll learn math real quick.
Yes.
Was the thing. Well, so you just don't teach them math because they don't want to? She's like, well, here's the thing. They will want to at some point because some aspect of what it is that they've decided they want to do will bump into math at some point. And that's when they'll come to me and I'll go, hey, here's how you figure that one out. Oh, now they want to do math real quick. And it can go point. Like that with a lot of things. So I don't know how I would do it, man. Like I've thrown my hat in the ring for my step parenting a few times in my life, and there were moments where I shined and I was pretty proud of myself. I was like, I didn't do too bad there. Unfortunately, it was in my alcoholic days, so ultimately I was a failure in the prospect of it. But I've spoken to everybody since then, and at least made it known that I know I messed up, and I've been fully absolved by two of them, and the other one is like 18-year-old girl right now, so she'll probably hate me for a few more years and then maybe grow to not hating me. But you know, it's just one of those things that. So yeah, I feel like I definitely am a parent now because I put that hat on, even though it wasn't really my kids biologically, and I didn't do the full stretch beginning to end kind of thing. But I have that feeling of it, and I know for sure that like it's an extremely valuable thing, and it should be taken very with a lot of respect, and it should definitely be done consciously and then with intent. Like right. You should know, okay, well, honey, we're going to now have to pause the shit out of everything we want to do now because we're going to have a baby and make our lives about that baby. And that's how it should start, I think.
We're not there, that's for sure. I mean, no. Like not the way parenting is now. And like I was thinking, well, when I was younger, it was very odd for a parent, for at least, and I can only speak for myself, so I don't want a blanket statement, but I can speak for myself, that when I was growing up, all of my friends had an intact family. There was the mother, the biological mother, the father, and they were raising the kids. And when I was growing up, if there was a break in that family and it was just the mother or the father, it was kind of looked at as weird. Like, wow, you don't have your both parents. And now they've flipped it. Now it's almost really weird that if you do have both parents in the house, and I definitely know it's by design that they're breaking the family unit up. Absolutely, I think they make it very extremely difficult on parents just by all the like everything that's going on and trying to keep up with even just putting a roof over people's heads. So I understand. I'm trying to look at it from both sides, but it's just really fascinating how they've kind of made having a family the weird thing. Like it's not normal. Now it's normal to be a single parent. They're kind of making that the normal, if you know what I'm trying to mean.
Yeah, no, and you both you guys said excellent points. Um, Jonathan, what you were saying, and Dana Martin is one of my mentors. She has excellent content. I highly recommend people check out. But she has a parenting style. She does talk about some principles that I think every parent needs to look into and apply. One of them is understanding learning, and that as human beings, we truly learn when we are internally motivated.
Right.
Meaning, if I don't want to learn about, porcelain toilets, the information is going to go in one ear and out the other, and I'm not going to retain it. Right. But if I'm internally motivated, then it's going to retain, and I'm going to take in that knowledge and I can apply it. This is so important to understand children's needs. For as an example, right? My daughter very much into animals and like gardening when she was about 7 years old. So we got her an apprenticeship, right, on a farm to play with animals and stuff.
That's a cool.
It's we're many people that actually haven't had children are still stewardships and mentors to a lot of children, right? This is very important. So understanding your child's needs and providing resources to promote that internal motivation of natural learning is vital, is super, super important. And then, what you were saying, Rick, about the household. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm in a co-parenting situation. My daughter's mother and I, we stayed together under the same house, even though we weren't like in a romantic relationship, right? We stayed together for 2.5, almost 3 years, just so we could have the family dynamic for our daughter in the formative years, right? So 0 through 7, the most crucial time in a being's life, because it's setting the whole operating system, psychologically, emotionally, physically. It's really important as well. So we did that, and then till she turned 9, and then we made the decision to separate into 2 separate houses because she's a little older. She could handle it a little differently than if she was younger. But it's just with the co-parenting and the separation in homes, it is so brutal. Then you bring the state involved, right? And then you have child support services and all this stuff. I mean, it is just it's a war. What it sounds doing, like a nightmare. It's pitting mother and father against each other in a full-on war, and they are the fuel for that. And it's just
it's
pretty crazy.
They're the worry, they're the problem too. They're like, they throw in the thing, whoop, here's the problem, and then they fund both sides of the war.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's just
and you
terrible.
bring up great point about the learning too, like Jonathan, and you were speaking on it too. Well, that I always thought that about, like, it's so much powerful when you want to learn something. Because I'm just thinking about myself when I want to learn something and I'm excited to learn about it. I take that information in and it sticks. It's there. But I always thought that the school system is such an unnatural way for a human to learn, that you got from this hour to this hour, you got math. And then from this hour to this hour, you got history. And then it's such an unnatural way to learn. It just it promotes no critical thinking, no conscious thinking. It's just memorize and spit it out to get your score. And to me, it's just such an unnatural way to learn. It really is.
The best they give you is, or you'll get bad grades.
Yeah.
And some people's parents don't care. And my mom realized very quickly that I was not going to care very much. And then so she gave me a motorcycle and then said, now I'll take it away unless you do good. And I was like, damn, all right, I'll do good. And I did. But it's literally the only thing, man. Like, and because I was just in a daydream from the minute I got on the bus until I got home. And then just when I needed to, I did the crap they wanted me to do. I was never there. I could literally daydream off into like full on landscapes into different places. And like that should have been nurtured and used. And like I could have probably been doing like psychokinesis or who knows what if I had been trained back in the day when that was like real powerful back then. Rather than being yelled at. Why are you staring off into space and not paying attention?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, dude, I'm getting an A in this class. Back off.
Yeah, I can totally relate. Well, if you think about it, I mean, 12 years from grade school to high school, 12 years, and there's usually, kindergarten and pre-K and then college. That is the most important years of development of a human being's life. And what it's doing is it's keeping them, like what you were saying, Rick, it's artificial. It's indoctrination. Indoctrination means to speak into. It's promoting a fixed mindset where they are just telling you how to think. And what is that going to do? It destroys critical thinking. Absolutely. And free thinking. And it's a limiter for consciousness. That's right. This is what the indoctrination outcome-based education is all about in the States and all over the world. It's just about creating a fixed mind state for good workers, obedient slaves.
Absolutely. Wow, it's crazy. And it's so, and I'm glad that I hope people are starting to realize that it's such an unnatural way to learn. I knew that at a young age. I would try to tell my parents that. I'm like, I don't care about this. Like, I don't want, I don't need to know about it. Why? And I was, why do I need to do this? For me, it was art. I was very big into art and I loved being out in nature and that. And if I just think of all the time that I was learning these things that I would have learned eventually as I needed them, but if it would have been focused on a passion, like I think of people that are great at music and stuff, and they're stuck doing all of this stuff that doesn't really matter. Why not focus in and harness in on something that you're passionate about? You're going to, as Jonathan said, and you said too, Will, you're going to learn the skills that you need as you go. If you need to learn math, you're going to figure it out, especially if it's part of your passion. It just, to me, that makes sense.
We need to become autodidacts, right? Yeah, this is the natural. We talked about the artificial as a fixed mindset. Well, what's the natural? The natural is a growth mindset, one of learning, accepting challenges, and growing, right? This is extremely important. This is where the internal motivation of learning comes into play, and just growing. Go ahead, Jonathan. I cut you off. Sorry.
Yep. Oh, no, it's cool. I was just going to pop in and say something really just kind of similar to just like people figuring out on their own. Time. The way I look at it is like if we run our society a little bit more differently, which is all kind of comes together. Like you don't necessarily have to know all that math right off the bat. Like the way they do it in school again is like, all right, surround yourself. Don't let that guy cheat off you and don't cheat off him and then get a better grade than him. Maybe you win a prize. You know what I mean? That kind of that attitude, that competition. Whereas it's like, dude, it's cool. Even if you don't know how to do this, that guy, look at him. He's already done. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how he knows this stuff, but he does. So we're good. We got that guy. We got that guy. And that guy over there did the same thing. So we're good. But they don't. They're like, you're not gonna do well in life. You're gonna fail because you can't do what that guy just did. You know what I mean? And it's
I've had teachers say that.
So right. So first of all, that's just a first of all. If we did things a little differently like that, and then dude, one day he'll either get he'll get that same level of whatever, or he'll get as much as he needs, because it'll come about that he needs to know some math or some trig or something that's like, well, I got to study it a little. And he'll get as much as he needs out of it, and that's all he'll ever need. Why would he need more? Why does he have to know this more? Why does he have to understand like all the different parts of English composition and all? Dude, maybe he doesn't. And so yeah, it's such a weird forced curriculum. I don't like the way it works. And again, if you just let people go about their thing, you can and again through demonstrating who you are as a parent. Like your children will care about their vocabulary when they see that you have a good vocabulary and use it appropriately. And even within your spouse, you discuss words and things like that. Yep. Like, oh, the kid will figure out real quick it matters. And all these things, body language and all these little things that you would think that actually don't even really get taught in school. They're for kids to figure out on their own. At some point, consciousness evolves and they go, oh, they just become aware of things. And that's a kind of a cool aspect of learning too, but you want them to be around people who are behaving in the way that when they do have those epiphanies, it's because they're watching this person behave and they go, oh, now I get it.
There's the music. Jonathan, first hour down. Wow, I'll tell you, that went quick. We are here with our amazing guest, Will Keller. Jonathan, the hours fly by when you have an amazing guest.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was like, oh, wow, here it is.
All right, guys, stick around. We will be back for hour 2 in like 4 or 5 minutes, guys. So stick around. Lots more to come. Welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a good little break there. I can't believe, Jonathan, how quick the first hour always seems to fly by.
It flies by when you're having fun, man.
It sure does. And we have an amazing guest. I hope everybody caught the first hour. We're here with Will Keller. We are talking about conscious parenting and so many other important topics. And thank you once again, Will, for being here. I always enjoy having you on and the discussions that we have. I learned so much. So I can only thank you. I can never stop thanking you enough.
It's a pleasure, my brothers. I appreciate both you guys.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. Thank you for being here, man. It's been good. It's been good. I knew we were going to have you on. Rick and I talked about this a while back when we started doing this, and I was just kind of trying to envision how kind of what the show was going to be about and what it was going to go. And I think just freedom in general, because one, that's a huge topic and there's a lot of ways you can approach it. And you
Good
can
topic.
find that, you can find that there's some because everybody needs to be moving towards this in some way or another, freedom. And so then, but I like to show the idea that it's like a big giant wheel. You can approach it from so many angles, whatever's most effective in your life, to get it. Like, so for example, growing food, and it all will come back to responsibility at some point. Raising children properly, it's all going to come back to responsibility. But yeah, I'm
It's a
definitely
good question,
glad,
Jonathan, because a lot of people say they want freedom. I
Right.
hear people say that all the time, but what does that really mean? I mean,
Yeah.
so maybe Will, you can touch in on this. Like, let's touch in on that. Like, they say they want it, but do they even know what they really mean or what they want? Or it's a great question.
Yeah, I'm glad you're going there, right? Because freedom has everything to do with parenting. And specifically, I want to bring in, right, the teenage years of young adults now, right? Preteens and teenage years, which are known as like the rebel years,
Yeah.
right? It's like this has been manufactured, the rebel years, right, of the teenage age group, right? The only reason why there is a rebellion, quote unquote, in the family household dynamic, right, is because of incorrect behavior. Freedom is, in my opinion, and I think is true, the meaning of life. Consciousness wants to evolve and expand. Nature, you can look at plants, animals, they just want to expand and evolve. Human beings, we want to do as we please and evolve and grow and expand. There's this expansion from the macro to micro, right? This is freedom. Well, what is freedom is unrestricted free will expression. So when you are raising children, like raising their awareness, their level of consciousness, and they get into the preteens, now they've already have their operating system, their foundational tools that they have received from parents and also their environment as well. Now they're becoming self-sufficient, right? A lot of parents want to restrict them, restrict what they think, how they express themselves, want to restrict their movement and their actions. Now, if you restrict anything in the natural world, then you get blowback. It's going to fight back, right? Anything does that, even plants and stuff. If you're trying to contain plants, it's going to want to try to grow out of whatever you're containing it, right? You have to cut it back if you don't, like a plant in a pot. Right, an animal. You'll break an animal's psyche keeping it in the cage, but give that animal will want to leave the cage and escape. Freedom is the most precious gift in existence, and we need to understand that as parents and become our freedom advocate for our children. But I'm saying this with already the prescribed caveat of understanding objective morality. So there's the only reason why teenagers are rebelling against their parents is because there's a lack of trust and freedom.
Right.
They are trying to control their kids. They don't trust their kids, and that's going to create hardships, and it's going to create psychological and emotional issues for the kids as well, and the parents, right?
The kids probably don't trust the parents either, because the parents aren't being good physical examples of how to behave. The kids are smart enough to see this and go, bullshit, dude. And you can't get any respect when that's the attitude going on in the back of their mind. It's like, dude, if you're not putting forth the example so that you can stand on how you are, yeah, no, you're not going to raise your kids.
Exactly. It's because the parents are acting like tyrants.
Yep.
This is the difference from peaceful parenting or, freedom parenting or authoritarian parenting. And, most parents are in that authoritarian dynamic because they've been conditioned and programmed that way by design.
And you hear parents say too, which drives me crazy. And my dad used to say it to me, like, "Do what I say, not what I do." And that would drive me crazy. I'm like, that is such a cop out
Yeah.
to me. Like, what a like. Well, I can do what I want, but don't you do it? You do. It's like, really, like, this is where we're at.
Yeah,
Like this.
see that, yeah, that kind of, that kind of thinking, do what I say because I said so.
Yeah, yeah.
All of this type of programming and conditioning is slavery.
Yep.
Psychological and emotional slavery. This is what we are putting onto our kids when we do this, and this is why we are in this state. Because now you have kids that are growing up, now they're adults, and they are obedient. They fully subscribe to authority in society, human authority, right? So they've already been broken, conditioned a certain way. And then there's the lack of self-respect, the lack of respect for others when it comes to justice and doing what is right.
Yep.
Right? I mean, so right action is diminished. Critical thinking and free thinking is diminished as well. It's the same, some guy told me, raising kids is just like training a dog, just like breaking in a horse, same type of
Wow.
thing, right? But unfortunately, that's how a lot of parents, that's how they act.
Yeah.
Because how you break a horse is you wear it down, and it's through repetition of restraining the horse, right? You keep the horse on a lead line, and you make it run circles, so it can't have its free will
Right.
expression of just running off. You do that for a long period of time. You do these exercises, and then the horse is broke, and now you can the horse will do whatever you say, in a sense. You can ride it.
Wow.
So, and that's just an example. So yeah, it is mind blowing. Now, where I want to take this is in the psychological realm. And Carl Jung was a big proponent of talking about psychology, obviously, but the two realms of the anima and the animus. Now, just briefly, so we can define the terms, what is anima and animus, right? It means soul. It means rational soul. It means life force and consciousness. This is where animate comes from anima.
Oh,
To
okay.
be animated is what? Is to be alive. Means you're endowed with spirit. Also, the word animal comes from anima, right? As well. Animal, one with a soul. So
Real quick,
yeah.
just to that also, because everybody pronounces it differently, but there's a Tool album that could be anima, It's that AE character, Nima, right? So anyway, I just thought that was interesting because they're very spiritual type of a band. So that goes along with I'd never put that together. It hit me for the first time, and I was like, I just had to say something because I'm like, oh, that's cool. That might be what that album means. Anyway.
Great point. I know exactly what album you're talking about. Yeah, and they definitely had an awareness of some of the stuff that I'm talking about.
That's cool.
Because this is, as you guys know, the shadow work, right? The shadow work is extremely important, but also there's kind of the shadow work. The term shadow work it's trending right now.
Absolutely.
In the new age realms and the life coach. Oh, I'm doing my shadow work, internal alchemy. But a lot of people don't actually understand what that really means and entails. So, but the anima and the animus is going deeper than just the shadow work. This is going down into, and you can correspond the anima and the animus to the left and right hemisphere of the brain, but it's also energetic properties. And so the anima, it's feminine, and the animus is masculine. Now, why is this important for parenting? It's very important, actually, for all of our own psychology that we need to individually dive into to go deeper down. So the anima, and we all have these psychological characteristics within us, the anima and the animus. But the anima is related to mother. The animus is related to father. So the relationship that I've had with my mother, right, that is going to set the stage the programming and conditioning for my animus and how I relate to women. And same thing with the father. My relationship with my dad sets the conditioning for the animus and how I relate and interact with men. Now, here's the problem. It's the anima and the animus, they can wed the shadow, the unconscious, where people bury all their resentments and traumas and unresolved issues. They bury that down, right? Well, the anima or the animus will wed that. And that is what Carl Jung talked about as anima or animus possession, meaning that it's external. It comes out in behavior. We all know, if you have a lot of, shadow unconscious baggage, yes, it can come out in behavior. But with the anima and the animus, it's directed to certain gender, right? Either the masculine, the males, or the females. So our relationship with our parents sets the stage with interaction with other human beings and our relationships. This is where, everyone's heard of, mommy issues and daddy issues.
Yep.
Well, where does that come from? This is what I'm talking about. It's the anima and the animus. So if parents understand this, ultimately we all need to, right? But so if someone, is older and their kids are grown up, this is where you can step in and facilitate great healing within your grown children, right? You could talk about the childhood and the relationship that you guys had and what you're doing. Even if your child isn't, fully aware, you could still be the facilitator and still provide healing. Or, they're doing the healing, but you're facilitating that. And that has profound effects. But also just relationships in general. We see, just look at the entertainment industry nowadays, like hip hop and rap nowadays, right? I mean, that's been manufactured for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Bitches and hoes, and how, and look how women, young girls, look how they act compared to like 20 years ago, right? The roles have switched. Males have become feminine and females, women have become masculine. This is a manufactured, premeditated attack on the anima and the animus, the psychology in individuals, and it's rooted in parental relationships.
Wow,
Yep.
that is so true. Well, I'm just thinking now too, and I think of you hear of mommy and daddy issues, and I've always wondered like what do people mean when they say that? Like, and I kind of always guessed it, but it's very true. And I just think about when you're having that if it's affecting at such a young age, as we keep saying, it keeps going back to those formative years. It's no wonder that some people fall for this false authority of government and stuff like that, because really they're looking for a father figure if they didn't have one in their life. Am I correct on thinking like that?
Dude, yeah, you nailed it, man. That's exactly where I was going to take it next. That's what it comes down to when I mentioned earlier about spiritual infants, right? We're spiritual children. We haven't reached mature adulthood.
Hmm.
And that's exactly right. It's parental abandonment. And this allows for individuals to identify and cling on to ideologies. This is the dialectics, right? The left-right dialectic, the over spiritual, the new age or religion, feminine aspect versus the military control aspect, or over analytical, the left brain dominant side. There's always these dialectics.
Yeah.
And absolutely that's what they are for. And just our personal relationships. It's like, as a man and a father, the relationship I have with my daughter it's going to set the tone for every man that comes into her life, or how
Very
she
true.
interacts with any other male, but also the respect and the self-love she has for herself. This is why when there's work that needs to be done, there's an unhealthy animus in women or men, I'm just using the example as women, right? They seek the bad boy, the guy that's the opposite of her father, or actually like her father. Right. That's the key, is that, it seems like the new boyfriend is the opposite of her father, but the psychological characteristics have something that her father has as well. Could be, he was mean to her, or, there wasn't enough love there or respect. And she's going to date people like that as well. And then they have kids and they do the same thing over. This is where psychological transference comes in. So these overarching categories, need to be understood and dove into.
I think it goes back to the fact that we talked earlier about how so many people don't really know what shadow work is. It's a trendy idea and everybody's talking about it, but and I know teachers that teach about it, and that don't, in my mind, really know what it is. And I learned what it was through default. I didn't really know it was called shadow work until I'd already gone through a good bit of it, and then I was like, oh, that's what that's called. Okay, now I get it. You know what I mean? I kind of learned it from the back end, because
that's kind of like me.
It's actual work. It's not telling anyone about it. It's figuring out what's actually wrong with yourself and then changing yourself. And it can happen real fast. And it can be really powerful and effective, and it can drag on and on and on. I mean, everybody's situation is different, but ultimately it's actually changing. That's the work. The work is becoming a different person. And that's so in a situation where, it just kind of comes back to, if you're going to raise kids, if you're showing them baggage, they're gonna, especially if you're not conscious of it, especially if you're not aware that you have issues, because kids are super smart, especially when they grow up. They can see into you, and some might be afraid to tell you, hey, Dad, this and that and the other. Like, I don't mind. I'll tell my dad things, and I'm sure he doesn't really appreciate it sometimes, but nonetheless, I do it out of like, hey, this is how we get better. This is how one gets better. And so I try to leave it from necessarily pointing so much, but it's just like, and I would imagine from a parent's perspective, it's hard to hear your kids teaching you stuff. But again, that's where
that's a good point.
I think that's where I think the ego has to be set down a little bit, and we just have to be mellow and learn that we can learn from everybody. Everybody learns from everybody.
Bro, well said. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. We need to get into the student-teacher dynamic, both child and parents. This comes down to teachability. We can learn tremendous amounts of knowledge, self-knowledge, from our children. Our young children are their mirrors. They can reflect our emotional, psychological baggage right onto us if we have the eyes and ears to see that, right? I mean, and plus young kids don't have the conditioning and the programming from culture as like adults, where it's rooted in. So man, you nailed some really good points. The shadow work is really, like you said, it's just understanding what makes you tick. It's understanding the psychological framework by which you operate. And to me, this is ongoing.
Always.
The shadow work is, there's the initial process of catch up, where you have to look at your childhood and bring yourself all the way up to par, but then it keeps going. Right. You still have that process of self-synthesis and analyzing yourself and what makes you operate.
Yep. That's step, I believe 11 in a 12-step program. That's part of the gig. It's like, now that you've gotten yourself better and now that you're good and you understand how you did all that, you keep doing it. And it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's, that's why I liked the, AA. I mean, not so much the organization, but the way I went through it, and my sponsor, and how I interacted with that program was just a miracle. I was like, this is how God works. You know what I mean? Like, to me, in my situation for that thing, I didn't want to do most of what he thought my sponsor is, what I should do, which was go to all the meetings and be an AA guy. And I was like, I was very resistant to that. I only did the little bit of it to appease him, because I didn't need the whole thing. I needed the connection to higher power. I needed the facilitator of the other person for it to make it the three-way thing that it actually is, where it's like you're really that person is there for confession too, a lot, like for you to really get it off your chest to another person and to creator, and say, okay, here's how I messed up. I know I messed up. I'm humble. I'm nothing, yet I'm fully a vessel willing to become the greatest that I can be. And then it happens. And then, so, that's part of the whole. And sometimes it takes, for me, takes really heavy weight before you can actually change, because otherwise you're like, I'm good, dude. What do you mean? I'm good. And I've found so many people tell me that when I'm like trying to nicely present the idea that maybe there's things about yourself you could work on, just as a thought.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
people don't want to hear that.
I'm good. Oh, yeah.
That's the great work, right?
Yeah.
The great work is that internal process. The one great work is the external process of educating the public and ending slavery. But that internal work has to come first. This is why the anima and the animus, understanding that, and there's, the law of correspondence, the anima and the animus on the macro planetary, right? We see this in nature. Just natural energy, it's purpose and meaning. So the animus, the masculine, is purpose, and the anima is meaning.
Yeah.
And this is just, it's extremely important to go deeper into that. And that's something that we all have to do, and I've done that personally. I've thought about the relationship I've had with my father, and still have with my father. He's still alive, and with my mother, and I was blessed to have a stepmother so young that's a beautiful woman. And here's the thing, co-parenting is the norm.
Right.
There's a lot of single parents where the other parent is completely out of the picture. Now, here's a hard truth. Your kid is going to suffer because of that, but that's out of your hands if one parent checked out and couldn't man or woman up and take on their responsibility, the ability to respond to that situation. So there is education that still can be done from the single parent, and also mentorship, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
And I'm not saying like, if you're a man, you're bringing all your girlfriends over because you want a quote unquote woman in the house to have an influence. No. I'm saying that you still you could seek a feminine mentor, right? A woman that is a mentor in whatever aspect that your children is interested in. Maybe you have a daughter and she's into crafts, right? You could seek that. Maybe it's an aunt or a friend or a grandmother, right? So it's there. Understanding this information it gives us the knowledge to adapt and to influence and facilitate our children's needs to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I look back and I had a stepfather for a few years, and I learned some stuff from him, but right as he kind of exited the picture, I met a guy who was same age, but he was a motocross rider. Like we met on motorcycles, so like the age almost didn't mean anything. My mom thought it was weird for sure. She's like, "Is he touching you? Is he making passes at you?" God, for like the first month, it was just because it was weird. I'm a 13-year-old kid. He's a 38-year-old dude, and we're going ride motorcycles all the time. She was just very leery. But anyway, that little weirdness aside, it was like, no, dude, we riding motorcycles, and it was just like. I look back on it now, and so much of that dude I picked up on, like he was the coolest dude in the world. You know what I'm saying? Because like he was my mentor. Like there was no, hey, I'm being your dad, or It was just like, like don't let your mom find out about this type of stuff. You know what I mean? And it was just like, and he'd help me fix my bike. He taught me how to do mechanic stuff. He taught me how to ride. He taught me how to drive. I mean, he's a 38-year-old dude, and he's got a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid next to him. And he's like teaching me stuff, doing the dad thing kind of, but doing it from a big brother perspective. And I just, kind of looking back on that and reflecting, it's like, because we were into kind of the same thing, like I really did absorb a lot from him. And so kids, like you said, a mentor thing, kids will pick up, especially if it's something they're interested in.
I certainly did.
I didn't even think about that until just now, how much I absorbed from that guy. But because I was fully interested in, and this was a dude that was also a roadie for like 12 different hair bands back in the 80s and early 90s. So every band you can think of and name that's on the radio and has the hair and had 10 hits, he was the roadie for them. So we had all these backstage passes, and you can imagine the stories and guitars all over the house. That was Kip's guitar, and that was this guy's guitar, and I'm like, wow, dude, you're cool.
Yeah, I think I definitely had a neighbor that was kind of like that, Jonathan, that took up the role. Because now I'm thinking about, like, I thought about this because my dad, I did have both parents in the house, but my mom was, like I was saying, a stay-at-home mom till I got into high school. But my dad was constantly at work, and I would only see my dad, if I was lucky, in the morning for a very short amount of time. And then in the evening, he would kind of come home, eat dinner, and he would crash. So I didn't really have a strong relationship growing up with my dad because he was just never home. But I definitely found somebody, an older gentleman that lived down the road from our house, and he kind of took up that role where I was learning so much from him. And I used to always think to myself, I wish I could be doing this with my dad, but he just never seemed to have the time. That's a whole different discussion because he was trying to provide for his family. But it's really weird how it's not weird. It totally makes sense that if you're missing something that important in your life, you're going to seek it out, if you know what I mean.
Or it'll find its way to you.
Find your way to you, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I was just kind of reflecting on it now, like for the first time. Of course, I've thought of that dude before and how much I've learned from him, but like just to hear it in this conversation, like the way it kind of, and how much I actually did pick up from him versus, say, my stepdad, who I lived with at the time, who was kind of almost more of a tyrant. He went more tyrant method. But he was the one living with me, and that was maybe what we were supposed to do. That's just how it was supposed to be. Yeah. Whereas this other dude, no, dude, we're friends. We ride motorcycles together, and I'm just older than you, and so I know shit. So you should listen to me. And it was like, cool. You know what I mean? It
just really ties into what Will's saying, that you need both the feminine and masculine. You need to be complete. You need that. It's so important.
And the non-tyrant method works.
Absolutely. And I tell my daughter, I say, well, there's a couple things that I've been telling my daughter for years. Number one, I will never lie to you, and I stand firm on that, even if it's a hard truth that I'm telling her. Right? I mean, she just recently cut her hair on her own, her choice. She wanted to do it, and I told her, I don't really like it, but that's just my opinion. Right? I don't. She doesn't need to seek daddy's approval on everything, because she'll seek that in the future for other men. But the other thing that I tell her is that you're my best friend. I treat my daughter with respect. I talk to her just as I talk to my dad, my friends, so I'm not doing baby talk. I never really did that to her. I treat her just like a human being. I show just a lot of respect to her and a lot of love. So that there's that superiority complex that we're parents and our children are beneath us. And that's not a good tone to set.
Absolutely. I mean, I see a lot of dynamics like that where the parents rule with an iron fist, and the child has to follow the rules because that's the rules. And as we're saying, that's such an unproductive way to go about it, and such a dangerous.
Yeah, I don't set rules in my house. I don't set rules, and I'll tell you why. I use communication. So if I tell my daughter, I make tinctures and I'm distilling something, right? I don't say, okay, rule, you can't go over in that room. I explain to her, say, hey, I'm distilling a tincture right now, so it's hot and the hot plate is on, so just watch out if you go over there.
Mm-hmm.
she could still go over there and bump into it and knock it down and break something if that was her choice, even if it was on accident. But I'm not setting a hard line, a hard rule. I like to explain things to her. This is why kids have the why stage, right? That's usually like around 4, 5, 6, right? Why this? Why that? Why that? To me, that's a golden opportunity to use the trivia method of truth discovery, critical thinking, right? And engage in that. A lot of people are kind of annoyed of that stage, but that's a great opportunity to even show your child, if they ask you something, for you to say, well, I don't know. Let's go find out. That is extremely empowering, because now you have a chance to teach your child how to do some critical thinking, right? So yeah,
that's very cool. Very cool.
Critical thinking, that is sorely lacking, Will, in the world. That's for sure. There's not a lot of that going on right now, and it's so important. The trivium, I that was so valuable when I learned that. I still remember that when it all kind of came together, and what a powerful way of thinking that I wasn't taught that in school, that's for sure, and I wasn't taught that by my family. It was never even talked about, kind of like I just think that it's such a powerful. It's so powerful. I can't put a more emphasis on it, that the trivium way of thinking is the key to unlocking a lot of everything.
Yes. And
Yeah,
there's a reason why it's not taught in indoctrination, public schooling, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually they didn't really teach it. They didn't call it the trivium, but we actually did have a class in my high school called critical thinking.
Wow.
And and I look back on my education in high school. I was in a very small, kind of rural part of Colorado. It was still like up and down the main stretch there, but it was all off by itself. 187 graduating class. And dude, I don't know what was going on around me. I know that, like, as I've gotten older and kind of, like, gotten out, and I'm 47 now, and I hear people just talking about what they learned, etc., from their high school over the past 20 years. I've come to realize that I went to a really good high school, and I had really good, like, of course, that's what parents always do, is they try to that's one of their higher priorities on the list, is I got a kid, make sure he gets a good school. And my mom did that. And I didn't really realize that again until, over the past 20 years, I've realized, wow, I actually had a pretty good high school. Like, they didn't indoctrinate me into stuff. There was classes that were like other people have never heard of, like critical thinking, where they actually tried to teach you how to think. And most of the teachers were in that vein. So it's not that it was like you needed the class per se. They would kind of expect you to figure it out. It's like, dude, are you paying attention? Are you in this class with us? It's like, yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. It was interesting. So, of course, there was probably multitudes of ways it could have been better. But what I did get, I ended up finding out is okay. So I was pleased with that. But again, nothing like you're going to get taking the reins in your own hand and figuring out a way to homeschool yourself. And
that's a good topic too, how important that is. Well, homeschooling, that's another hot thing right now going on that I talk to people. A lot of people are discussing is the homeschooling, and how is it doable? Is it important? Those are great discussions.
Yeah, they make it so hard financially so that it's almost impossible. But
yeah, you have to. That's a really, really important topic that I think parents need to take in a lot of education on. So, like we were saying, I mean, co-parenting is the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have separated parents, and parents have to work, right? There is it's hard. They definitely make it hard for people, and the states don't make it easy as well, right? They still want to check in with you and everything like that. 100% the ideal condition is full on unschooling, in my opinion. But now you have to be reasonable. You have to and be pragmatic and practical. That might not work for a lot of parents, and it might not work for a lot of children. Some children, they thrive in social atmospheres all the time. Not saying unschooled kids don't get any social activity, not saying that at all. But what I mean is they like the classroom type vibe, the type scene. So in that case, there are lots of other options. There are charter schools. There are Waldorf-inspired schools as well. Now, a lot of you have to do your research.
Right.
They're all different. You have to get involved. This is what bring to my point of sacrifice. It's so easy nowadays for parents just to enroll their kids into school and then bam, they're off 7 hours a day. They don't have to do anything, right? You have to get involved. You have to do your research. What is the best situation? It ultimately comes down to the relationship that you have with your children. So even if your kids are in public school, which yikes, but still, if that is the case, guess what? You still are the parents. You still have that influence on them. How is the relationship? Because if you're not engaged on that deep level, on that relationship and staying within rights and freedom, if you're not being the freedom advocate, then your child is going to look elsewhere and it's going to find culture. It's going to find these institutions. Culture is the big one for young kids and teenagers, right? Culture is tied into the school and what is trending and all that. And this is why a lot of parents, they say they can't relate to their teenage kids. It's because you're not getting involved, and your kids have already latched on to culture, and that's a whole nother ideology that they find themselves into. So my point being is that there are options for parents. There's a lot of options, actually. If you're in a co-parenting situation, the best thing you could do is communicate with the other parent and agree on principles, morality.
Right.
Try to, if the other parent is completely unaware, and I trust me, I understand that. I've seen some horrific situations with parents where one parent, wants to fully vaccinate their kid and the other parent does not, and you're going to full on war. But maybe the approach is understanding natural rights and trying to communicate that to the other parent, or just showing them information and research on the pharmaceutical industry. It's a tough realm, but that's what I mean about sacrifice. We all sacrifice. Sacrifice is you're giving up energy to do something. We are doing that now. We are sacrificing time and attention to do this episode, which is great, right? Parents need to sacrifice for their children.
And as you say that, it leads me to something that I wanted to kind of recommend as a just kind of like a little caveat to this whole idea, is that, again, we're talking about being an example to your kids. So as you're doing that, well, now I have to do something different because I can't afford to homeschool my kids. I got to have this job. Well, what about becoming self-employed? What about becoming self-employed? What about inventing a job and becoming self-employed? Maybe make candles. I don't know. That's just off the top of my head. You can make candles and you can find a way to sell candles, and you might not make a whole lot of money, but you could eventually. And then what you're doing is you're being an example. I mean, first of all, to yourself, because now you're doing it and you've got a baby that doesn't know you from Adam yet. And so while you're okay, I better figure all this out. Now the baby's starting to become one, and now you've got your foundation and you're starting to sell some candles and you got an idea. And now by the time the kid's 2, it knows mom or dad, whoever's doing this is takes care of business. You know what I'm saying? Like figures out, does this. And so I'm just saying that's an additional way that, one, you can conquer a problem. Well, how can I possibly homeschool my kid? I can't afford it. Start your own business. And now you've not only done that, but now you're teaching yourself something. You will be working on shadows at that point doing this too. That's called scary stuff, where you put yourself out there and you're not relying on someone else. You will find your shadows. They'll bump into you.
Oh yeah.
and now you're getting more prepared for the kid when he gets older. And you're all, and you've made the decision because you've had the kid. So we're gonna, time frame wise, I'm assuming we're there. We're like, okay, had the kid. What do I do? You now make this job work. Figure out something that you love, that you're good at, that you can make some money with, and believe me, I say this because I've done it before. I've done it multiple times in multiple different ways. You can just go make money doing stuff, not even illegal. So again, that's where your imagination and your creativity comes in. And again, real quick, I'll say in that regard, I was wondering if I was going to be able to work this in today, and right there I did. Max Planck, the physicist, his quote was, "Scientists must have a vivid an intuitive imagination, because new ideas are not generated by deduction, but by an artistically creative imagination. So you want to raise good kids so that we can have freedom in this world. You yourself need to be imaginative and creative in all aspects of your life so that you can show your kid that that's what you do too. And then if you actually have that open-mindedness to do that, you will be amazed at what you can learn from your kid, because dude, then they're going to start vibing on that right away. And they're already in that realm where they're connected to that realm, dude. So it just flows through them. And if you're not sitting there telling them that's not real, don't talk like that, that thing's not there, and you're letting them their imagination do it, like, you might actually realize there's something from the other side
Right.
communicating with you through them. Hey, so
Yeah, dude, great points, man. Great points. And children are extremely they have just a vast and powerful imagination, right? By design. Imagination is creativity. It's so empowering and needs to be utilized. And that's something that parents can learn from their children as well. I was blessed to grow up, and my parents grow up in a family business, right? They were that example for me. When they retired, I could have easily got a job and worked for someone. But what did I do? I started my own business, right? And I would communicate that with my daughter as I was doing that process. So you're absolutely right. We have to set that example. What's the norm nowadays, right? Oh, you got to go to college and then get a job, go work for someone. That's not always the case. It shouldn't be the case. Actually,
it's not what you want to teach your kids to strive for. No, dude,
Yes.
You want to be the boss. You want to be the boss's boss. That's who you're trying to be. You know what I mean? You don't want someone above you, because ultimately what you're saying is, well, it's easier to just take a lesser position. Yeah, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff you don't want to do, but Friday rolls around and they just hand you a paycheck. And then, it's like, really? That's what I'm doing all this for? No, thanks.
Go to college and then be a slave.
Yep.
Right.
To pay back your college debt, that God knows what that bill will be. I know people are still paying back.
67,000 plus it can be.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I know people are still paying back college loans like all these years later. I'm like, wow, they really set you up, Will, for failure from the get-go. It's
such a scam.
They don't tell you that it's a scam. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And college is definitely one of the most dangerous places for your kids to be psychological, because all these crazy artificial ideologies, that's where they're implemented.
That's
hardcore.
Where they come from, some of them. Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yep. The breeding ground.
It comes down to what you believe, right? This is so important. The main message of what I'm talking about here today is you have to analyze what you believe. Even on the topic of homeschooling, a lot of parents think homeschooling is just doing public schooling at home, where they set up a bedroom, or they set up a space in their room and make it look like a classroom. They got the desk. No,
Right.
No, that's not what it's about.
You got to get a clock on the wall that dings at 45 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, okay, we're doing schooling from, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., just like public school. No, that's still indoctrination. That's not what it's about. It's about natural learning, motivating, inspiring for your child to fall in love with learning. And but it's all about what we believe. We need to look at that and use the trivia method of critical thinking and realize, okay, this is all bullshit. This is artificial thought concepts that actually are not in alignment with what is correct, what is right, and what is moral. And eliminate those and get more in harmony and symbiosis with nature.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And if you're one of the badasses out there that are like going, yep, heard this before, dude, know this, dude, then write the book for the new program that needs to be developed, because because I know there are some good homeschooling programs out there, but they can only get better because of people like Will here that are and the people that he listens to and has learned from that are actually putting skin in the game and doing these things. And so other people are then coming and listening, and we're gonna have to take the reins and tell your friends and tell other people, and then we can work as communities. Then you can now, well, man, there's 15 parents involved in this homeschooling thing, and we're all kind of on the same page ish about how we want to do it. So now we can rotate around. And now there can be, man, this dude's got like a barn. Like, that's kind of cool. We can utilize that, and he's willing to let us. You know what I mean? It just, again,
you're so right.
and it's all creativity and imagination. It's like, please just talk to people, communicate, go, hey, like, let's not let our kids be taught about sex when they're 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't get me on that one. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then maybe people will contact you and go, what do you mean? What do you? And then, well, let's just try to start our own thing. It'll be hard. Yep. Let's all do it together. It'll be hard. Let's plan a Saturday. Let's all get together. Let's do a neighborhood watch, except for our kids' future.
Well said, man. Some great points. Some excellent points, man. And this is why the fundamental principles of objective morality, the trivium, which is critical thinking, learning how to think, and natural law, the principles of natural law, which are, the governing dynamics of how this reality operates, those categories right there, that's what every parent needs to understand for themselves and then educate their children on. And the rest will take care of itself. It's all creativity and imagination. After that, your child's going to do what your child wants to do, and you should promote that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And they'll be so good at it. And they'll love it. And it might be weird, dude. It might be weird. Like, was it Dinah Martin was talking about one of her kids is like harvests the goats and then spins wool and then makes his own wool and then makes these costumes for these, like, for the LARP groups that go out in the 50,000s in the wood and do the fake sword fights and stuff. And like that those whole huge communities got a hold of him. And it's like, and he's 12 and 13 doing this. It's like, what?
Yeah. He made some costumes for the show Vikings as well.
Yeah. Right? That's just like next level. What are you talking about? Kids are doing stuff like that. Like, yeah. And that's because she let him figure out that. Who would have known he wanted to do that? And he wouldn't have known if you had crammed him in a school and been like, learn 2 + 2.
Yes, exactly.
I have a friend that like that too, Jonathan and Will, that she since I grew up with her, and ever since we were little, she was into like nature, like bugs and stuff that most people would run away from. She would dive into it. Like, she was in swamps and looking and digging up bug. Like, I'm serious. Every creepy crawly thing that you could think of, she was into. Wow. And now she's a big researcher in Mexico and working to save a lot of the wildlife in Mexico. And just really involved with nature and educating people and trying to save a lot of the species that are going extinct. And I just think that if, like you guys just said, if her parents crushed that at a young age, she wouldn't be doing the great things she's doing now. They let her figure out what she loved, and they encouraged it and they nurtured it, and now she's doing amazing things. And I just think,
I said, it might be weird.
Yeah, it was weird to all of us at that time.
Weird stuff, man. Weird is how it's gonna go. If you're not being weird, you're being like everyone else.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, she was looked at as weird for sure, and it's just wow. But just to see where she's went to, it just shows the power. If you want to learn, it's something you love and you're passionate about and encouraged. That's the way to learn. I always looked at learning in negative when I was younger, because they were forcing me to learn something I didn't want to learn.
That's right.
At that time.
Yep.
Same with me. And that's a common thread with, people that are aware of what's going on, quote unquote awake, right? It's a common theme that a lot of them, in public schooling, they checked out mentally. They kind of saw that that it wasn't right, internally. So yeah, dudes, really, really good points, and have fun with it. It's a hell of a journey, but also recognize that the agendas that are going on, and that it's scary times, but you got to be grounded within yourself as a parent.
For sure. Yeah. And I'm just looking at the time. I mean, well, I could sit and talk to you for another 2 hours. You know that. I learned
you guys
so
are
much
great,
from you.
man. It flows so nicely, man.
It does. Yeah. And so we got about 5 minutes left. So I want to at least give you a few minutes to let everybody know where they can find your work, what you're working on. I want to give you the floor for the next few minutes, just so you can let people know everything that you need them to know, where they can find you, etc.
Excellent. And thank you to all the viewers and listeners. And John and Rick, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you both and all the work that you guys do. So yeah, my main website is naturalfreedomleague.com. We're going to start doing video podcasts again in the new year. So that's going to be exciting, a new format as well. Also, I'm one of the co-creators of the Freedom Under Natural Law conferences, and that's freedomundernaturallaw.com. And I believe we are working on Funnel 3, and more details will be out soon about that. That's all I'll say. And then I'm also on the One Great Work Network.com content creator under there. So yeah, go check out my presentations on conscious parenting. I have 2 presentations. Take them in order. They are great. And also keep tabs on me because I'm creating kind of like a video series, or I don't want to say a course, but it's about 30 shorter videos for a new conscious parenting website that I'm going to launch. And
Wow.
So yeah, you keep tabs on me. You'll see that release in early 2023.
That's
Cool,
going to be
man.
really
So
exciting.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what I was talking about with the creating the new program. So you're already kind of in your own way doing your own thing, creating a program.
Yeah, I want to take something. I want to, kind of go into detail of what I've learned thus far, new information that I've learned, and just dive deeper, but in an easier, shorter videos, like 10, 15-minute videos. People can take them at their own pace. Attention spans are getting shorter.
Yeah,
And it's just, I'm passionate about this topic. It's extremely important. And yeah, so new
Cool.
Very
content.
exciting. Yeah. That's how I first learned about you, Will, was your conscious parenting presentation, and it was a game changer for me because I don't think a lot of people think about that aspect of it, and the conscious parenting, and that I think that and especially me because I'm not a parent. I never, I always question why people turn out the way they do and why people believe in what they do, and it always boils back to parenting. That's where it always seemed to boil back down to.
Yes, the lost art of reduction, right, is when we can reduce it down to its principle and attribute, the cause and effect. I love doing that. That's a part of critical thinking. I've done that for many years. I like doing that with nature. And if you apply it to the world and what's going on, it will lead you to parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Great stuff.
Yep. And and it transfers into anything. You got to take care of, a garden and crops and food in your yard or animals. And so like all the levels of consciousness that exist around you, there's an aspect of your care going into it. And that will produce the fruit, if you will, just across the board, metaphorically, of what you want. And so your kids being awesome, and ideally think about it like, who's going to take care of you when you get old? You know what I mean? Hopefully the little vessels of joy that you raise appropriately, you know what I mean, will come back on you later and go, I love you, Mom and Dad. Thank you for taking care of me. Now let me help you.
Absolutely, man.
I can imagine the other
full
side
cycle.
of that might be horrific. Like, oh my God, who are these people? Where's Steve? Like,
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
we change their diapers when they're babies, and then they change ours when we're old. Old
Yep.
people.
Yep,
That's so true.
I'm doing that right now. I never really got to do. I never had any kids that I was stepfathering where the diaper was an issue. So I never did diapers. Never had to do diapers until now. Now I'm taking care of my mom, so I'm getting to pay it back. And it's
awesome.
really it's such a cool thing to be able to get to take care of my mom at this point. So if anybody's out there and that pops up for you and you get a chance to kind of just put your life on hold for a minute and take care of your parents, I highly recommend doing it, because when they're gone, man. So
yeah,
Absolutely.
I did that with my birth mom in the last year of her life, and it was every day it was a lot of work, and I wouldn't take it back at all. I enjoyed it. I got really close with my mom in that last year, and it was great for sure.
good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Great show, guys. I mean, Will, you're welcome back anytime, my friend. You
Yes,
know
please
that.
definitely. Yeah, man.
Definitely
You'll have to come back again. And and we'll continue on our discussion. You'll have gotten some more stuff put out by the next time you come back, so we'll be able
Sweet.
to kind of go through some of that. But
Absolutely.
what a good show this was, man. This will be fantastic. A good one for the records.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it, and keep doing the great work.
Absolutely. You too, my friend.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's the end of the show. Thank you, Will Keller, for joining us. And I hope everybody has a great New Year's, a safe New Year's, and have a great evening, guys. Be back very soon. Take care, guys.
Happy New Year's.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.